get started. We love to get started on time. So, first of all, good evening and a very warm welcome to our session. I think this is a very interesting session that we have today. Power of Reinventing Yourself with Sarika Kshirsagar. And I know I mispronounced it, so I apologize. I said
It's
it's like
fine.
a tongue twister for me.
It's fine. It's fine. It was much
So,
better.
much better? Okay, I've been practicing, but I still quite don't get it. But I'll tell you a little bit about Sipping Thoughts. Sipping Thoughts is a multi-platform media company that was co-founded by me. I'm one of the co-founders, and by Meeta Gudgutia. We set it up keeping in mind the tagline, Real Women, Real Thoughts. We wanted to create a no-judgment platform and create a network of women for women. Sipping Thoughts right now reaches about 2.5 million women on a monthly basis. We're available on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, and of course, please do check out our website. We have lots of interesting content. We have a lot of webinars. We have our Let's Talk. I'm sure you'll find something there that will tickle the senses and will get you kind of excited to come and join back. But today, we're talking about you. And we're talking about, well, often we feel, is it time to reinvent ourselves? Are we stuck? Do we have that desire to kind of remain vital and remain relevant? Are things changing too fast? So, how do we keep pace? So, today, Sarika, we have with her who's an expert in this area, and she will lead us through how reinventing is also a continuous process. Sarika is the founder of TNT Soft Skills Studio. She does these workshops for leading corporates. I mean, the who's who. She's done them for Vodafone, for Tata Steel, for Credit Suisse, Mahindra Finance, LIC, and many, many others. She also recently conducted this workshop, Scaling Up with Emotional Intelligence for FICCI Flo in Ahmedabad. She has a rich experience with over 16 years in the training and development industry. But her goal is not only to make an impact, but also to drive home the desired change that you want to see. She has a unique blend of conceptual and experiential methods that add flavor and flesh to her training interventions. And most of all, she is a positivity believer, positivity, what could I say, evangelist.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Sarika, first of all, thank you and welcome to Sipping Thoughts. We're so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sukirti. It's my pleasure, and I'm equally likewise happy and glad to be amongst you people. And I just hope I'm able to add some value to your precious times and space. So
Well,
thank you
Sarika,
so much.
let's get started. But first question, I know when you and I were talking and we said, okay, let's do this topic. So why did you pick this specific one, reinventing yourself, for the session for Sipping Thoughts today?
All right. So, yeah, this is a very good question. So, the first thing that came to my mind when we were discussing the topic is since last 8 to 9 months now, we've been going through really, really trying times. And these are the times when I see people really losing their, identities. They or something that they had been doing since so many years, but suddenly there was a jerk, and they were thrown out of the gear due to COVID-19, and there was a lockdown, and people had to live and work in isolation, which had become really very difficult for them. So they had lost the track somewhere. And I thought with this kind of reinvention strategies that we're going to discuss and share today, they will get some inputs and insights on how they can get back onto their track and try and figure out something new and something novel, which would be apt not only during these times but for their better future as well. So this is the idea why I thought of picking up this topic. Yes.
Now, my next question before we let you get started with this session.
Mm-hmm.
So, you
Mm-hmm.
really focus a lot on making people get to that desired change. So, what
Yes.
is that step process that you use so that we actually move towards making it happen rather than just talking about it?
Yes. So just talking about this would be like a knowledge area, all right? So this is just like a sharing kind of knowledge. But when I talk about experiential ways and I talk about real life examples and case studies, I try and bring home the desired change. So though there are restrictions on online, but when we used to take physically these kind of trainings, we used to make people act actually on everything that we discuss. So we used to have case studies and role plays and discussions, presentations through which they used to have a feel of all this, and that desire, that drive them to the desired change that they wanted to see ultimately. So the change would only happen not only when it's in your mind, but it actually needs to be put into practice, and they need to get that kind of platform. Once they get the platform, they are able to explore their potentials and exploit it to the maximum and raise their bars, and that's how they get the kick, and that's how they feel that yes, I can change for the better and this is possible. So that's what I have been doing since so many years, and I can see it has added a lot of value to many people's lives, to a certain extent at least. That's
Fantastic.
how I do it. Yes.
Well, Sarika, welcome again to Sipping Thoughts, and I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sukirti. So, thanks a lot, everyone. It is really my pleasure. So, what I have done for today's session is all about reinventing ourselves. I have got a PPT with me along with the slides. We are going to all are going to discuss and have a nice chat along, so that we can have the maximum out of this session today. So, let me begin with my slides first of all. So, if you look into this says, just as established products and brands need updating to stay alive and vibrant, you periodically need to refresh or reinvent yourself. So the whole idea of reinvention is we need to keep on updating and keep ourselves alive, upgraded, and that's how life needs to go on. So as I was just talking about, just now that. Due to COVID-19, things have gone topsy-turvy. Um, I mean, at the end of the year, we're almost 10 months down the line. Within 2 years, we're going to start with an altogether new year. And if someone asks you, okay, how was your 2020? So I'm sure most of us are not going to have a happy answer, because there's a lot of loss that has happened in terms of men, money, and material. So everyone has suffered to a certain extent. So we do not really have pleasant memories. But the whole purpose and idea of having this session today is I want to change that attitude. I'm sure many of you might have already had these kind of experiences where out of necessity you had to reinvent few things and start doing things in a different way, be it working from home or schooling from home, and there were so many new things. For instance, for me, conducting and participating in webinars was something new, which I was really not used to. It was not required. Basically, my hands were full with physical webinars, and I used to enjoy those physical interactions. So I never thought of conducting online. But yes, this lockdown gave me this opportunity. In fact, I got this opportunity for myself, wherein I thought that let me do it this way, though it is not very pleasing or comfortable always. But I tried my hands and tried doing it in a different way as such. So I'm sure this has been a contradictive year for many of us. There have been certain lopsides, but yes, there are few plus points as well if we look at it. So now what I want you people to share with me before we begin is, first of all, if you could turn on your videos, as Preeti suggested, it would be really great for us to look at your faces and expressions. And secondly, I just want you people to answer one question of mine, that what's that one single thing that you started doing in a different way, be it a habit that you changed, be it a task that you carried on, be it some kind of action or activity that you did in a different way, and you invented that, oh wow, I can do it and this is working well. So I'm sure all of you have had these kind of experiences. So any of you would like to share these?
Mine was also webinars. We never did. We were doing so many physical events. So this
Right.
was like a very new thing for us. But we said,
Yes.
okay.
Let's do
Uh,
it. So this
so
is
Sween
yes.
is saying, reaching more masses to contribute my skills in their welfare.
Okay, that's great.
Others, please do share if you've done something new,
It could be
something
something
different.
personal as well. So I invented for myself that I could be so patient with my kids being around 24/7, and I could deal with them so well, and I could handle them so well with so much of patience and courtesy. So this was an invention for me, which I thought was never possible before. So anything personal or anything that you,
Yeah,
or
so Dimple
professional.
is sharing that she's learned a lot through webinars, and a good
Mm-hmm.
point is no travel time is required. Marianne
Right.
says she started online yoga classes. Parul has
Okay.
said, wow, I started my YouTube channel where I put up guitar covers. Siali
Okay.
is sharing she's conducting webinars on parenting. She started her
Wonderful.
own practice in counseling and coaching.
Okay.
Celine is saying online training was the new platform for our rural students. Seema says
Okay.
nice relaxing time after 3 years. 13,
Great. This is
13
great.
years, sorry.
Uh-huh.
So
Any
Pragya is
more?
saying she's attended a lot of Sipping Thoughts webinars. Awesome. I hope we're keeping you all busy.
Yeah. This is great. This is great. Thank you so much for these insights. So, as we understand that you all have already started with this reinvention journey, you're already on that. But let's understand one basic difference is when we did it or when we started doing it during the lock time, it was all out of necessity. It was forced upon us. Most of us, we did it because we had no choice. Yeah, or we had no better choice. But now, when we're talking about reinventing ourselves here, we're talking about doing it voluntarily. We're talking about doing it as a lifelong process. We're talking about doing it as something which is we're doing willingly as such as a growth process throughout our lives, and that's the basic and major difference. So having spoken about that, when we say that it's a lifelong process, when are those actual times when we feel that there's a time now, let me start reinventing, or let me start finding more about my own selves. So here I would just like to show you a few things what I've got for you. So when do you feel the need to reinvent? You're never too old to reinvent yourself, first of all. So, here, whenever you are facing a major setback, that's the time for sure that you need to find a way to reinvent. You're facing conflicts, be it personal or professional relationships. That's the right time to reinvent about ourselves. Whenever we are facing a crisis situation, now a crisis situation could be something as personal as losing a relationship, or losing someone a near or dear one to some critical illness, losing your job, which many of us have gone through these days. It could be a social crisis situation or a global crisis situation like COVID-19, or it could be an identity crisis kind of situation where we have lost our identity in terms of the confidence and conviction that we had in ourselves. So whenever we find ourselves in these kind of situations, it's the right time to take a back seat and sit and try and assess, the need to reinvent. Whenever we find life being very monotonous, at every time, every new day, we wouldn't be into a conflict situation or a crisis situation, but most of the times of our lives we lead a monotonous kind of. So whenever we feel that, okay, this is something which is routine, there's no charm in my life anymore, and there are no challenges, and everything is like streamlined and smooth, these are the times again that where we need to push ourselves and try and reinvent. And of course, as I said, growth. Now growth, as I said, is a continuous process, and it's a lifelong process. So if you want to grow in terms of our vision and mission in lives, we again need to reinvent ourselves. So these are the times when. So apart from this, I'd like to ask you people again: do you feel any other time, or apart from this, anything specific that you found yourself when the need of reinventing was utmost, and you really thought that you need to work on it? Any situation, any relation apart from this that we discussed just now, any time that you felt that, okay, this is the time that I need to reinvent myself? Anything that you would like to share here on this point?
I definitely Felt so when I moved. So I will start off the conversation. Definitely, you feel that that is also an opportunity to reinvent yourself because you're moving, meeting new people. They actually don't know the old you. So it also gives you
Yes.
maybe a blank canvas to
Oh,
actually start.
yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Siva says the importance of self love.
Uh-huh. Great. Yes. That's when you feel the need to reinvent yourself. Yes. Okay. So self-love would be something which is very primary and very basic. So yeah, so this is these are the times, particularly when there is a need to reinvent ourselves. So moving back to my slide here, I would take up this forward by going into my next slide, which is why do we need to reinvent? Of course, to create new goals and roles, have a clear and better purpose in life, remain vital and relevant, remain important in whatever we do, and add spice to life. So, as we know that variety is the spice of life. If you are not leading a variety kind of life, you're not adding any spice to a life, we tend to get monotonous and bored out of life, and that's where the need to reinvent comes into picture. So these are the areas. Now, what are the challenges? I'm just going to share a few challenges that I think are very prominent while because reinvention, first of all, let me tell you, is not a very um, it's not a very comfortable or convenient kind of process. It's strenuous, it creates stress, it requires a lot of planning, and throughout the process we might face many challenges, many obstacles, and many hindrances. So what kind of challenges do we face? So the limitations could be situational or personal. So when I say situational, first and foremost is the resources. Now, here, when I say resources, it means that we always feel that we have limited resources to do whatever we want. So the first and foremost resource that I always find people talking about is I have very less time. I'm busy and I don't have time to do what I want. I don't have time to go through this upgradation and updation. So time, money, people, support. So on this point, let me tell you one thing. What I feel is, as I said just now, that reinvention is a very strenuous process. It's very important that we ask for some support. We need support. We need guidance. We might need some kind of mentoring. We might need some kind of hand holding. If this is not available, then this would be a situational limitation. So most of people I find cribbing about this. So the idea is, of course, that we look for these resources, we create these resources, and we work on them and manage them to see that there is no scarcity of these resources. Yeah. So here, coming back to the personal limitations. So of course, the personal limitations would be like physical, emotional, and attitudinal limitations, and of course the behavioral limitations. So either your physical capacities would be limited. You would say, I don't have the stamina to go for a 1 hour gym. I feel very tired. Gym exercise doesn't suit me. I start feeling this, that, exhausted. So that would be your physical limitations. Emotionally, you might feel drained at times due to situations happening around you or people around you. Attitudinal and behavioral limitations. Can someone give me an example of what kind of attitudinal limitations do we have? Or behavioral limitations do we go through when it's a process of reinvention? I'll just give you an example, small example. Procrastination would be a behavioral limitation. आज नहीं मैं कल कर दूंगी, ये साल नहीं मैं अगले साल कर दूंगी, अभी मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, अभी मेरे बच्चे छोटे हैं, अभी मेरे पास support नहीं है. So these kind of behavioral limitations or challenges. Attitudes could be something like I don't need this, or it's very difficult for me, or I'm not able to handle this, I'm not able to deal with this. So that could be your mental blocks that you, if nothing else, lack of willpower. So any such kind of examples that you could share in case of
Yeah.
behavioral and attitudinal limitations
So
for.
Sheetal is sharing that a lot of times we're resistant to change or adapting to new. Sreen, I
Mm-hmm.
know it all. I'm managing well. Suchita
Mm-hmm.
says, not possible for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Vatsala says, self doubt, time wasted. Suchita, I'm too old for this. One question I'd also like to ask you, when do we know? Do we know when we are stuck? Or are there signs that we are stuck and we need to reinvent ourselves?
Okay. So yes, of course, the basic idea here would be, when you're not happy with yourself, when you're not satisfied with whatever you're doing and how much ever you're doing, when you're not leading a fulfilling life, you can think that you're stuck. That's what I feel. Now, sometimes it happen how much ever money you're earning, how much your comfortable life you're living, how much everything is going smooth, but you still feel a sense of, dissatisfaction and unfulfillment. That's the time when you're stuck. That's the time when you need to push yourself and find out what's that which is bothering me or which is not making me happy in spite of having everything. So if you do not have a particular thing, for example, if you're not getting your promotion, stuck. You know that you're stuck. If you're not getting married, you're stuck. All right. If you're not getting properly in a relationship, if your relation is not going smooth, you're stuck there. If your kid's not listening to you, you're stuck. If you're having conflicts with your bosses and employees, you're stuck. That's easy to recognize. What's difficult to recognize is when everything is going smooth, but still you are not happy and satisfied from within. Even then, you're stuck. And that's the time you need to find out what's that which will make me happy. For instance, you do everything that you can for your family, for your own selves, but you're looking for something more. You're looking for something more, for more satisfaction and for more peaceful life. So that's the time when you need to figure out and reinvent. So that's what I'm going to do in my further slides. I'm going to give you the journey, how it goes, how it starts, and how it goes, and how it ends towards the closure. So that's about it. All right. So we are talking about behavioral and attitudinal changes. The biggest challenges or biggest limitation as far as attitude is concerned is lots of fears and phobias, lots of apprehensions, lots of psychological blocks, mental blocks, lots of preconceived notions in our mind. So all these things, ये सब अंदर है. जो बाहर के resources है उनको पाना आसान. If you don't have money, you can always go and take a loan. But something which is within you, because growth is an inward process. Growth is not outward. So you need to look into self and try and find out, how can you create a proper attitude and proper mindset, and then you will behave accordingly, and only then you will get the desired results. Right? So these are certain challenges that I thought we can pick up. And now I'm coming to the most important aspect with the last two slides that I have for this session. The most important aspect, and that's the journey, the journey towards reinvention or reinventing ourselves. So the journey to reinvention is summed up in 3 R's: invent yourself and then reinvent yourself. All right. So first, it's the invention process. Now, how do we invent ourselves? Simple, very common. Reassess yourself, first of all. For this assessment, you need to do a SWOT analysis. Every now and then, after a couple of years or couple of months, we need to do a SWOT analysis. I'm sure all of you might have heard about this management principle of SWOT, which is try and figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats that you might face in reinventing yourselves. So these are the areas that we need to really work on. On this note, I would want you people to tell me, this is about reassess or maybe your own assessment. All right. So it's like it requires a lot of introspection and retrospection and all that. So here, try and find out. I'll just ask you one simple question. Let me see how quickly can you answer. Because when my son asked me this question a couple of months back, I required some time to answer, reflect, and then I answered it to him. So I thought this is so difficult to answer this question. So let me see how you people take it. This question is, what is that one thing, or what are those two things in your life which make you super excited or super nervous? Okay, one each. So the two things which make you super excited about your life and super nervous.
Tough questions.
And the word I'm using here is super, which means that you need to be really like a childlike excitement. As we start growing up, we forget to get excited. So there could be things which make you feel excited and also super nervous, which are like two extremes. Yeah, I thought this needed to be answered promptly, quickly, because this is something which is super for you. So it has to come to your mind quickly.
So Suchita says super excited travel. I said
Uh-huh.
my kids. Shubham
Okay.
says thrilling rides. Uh,
Okay.
Shayali says fulfilling our goals gives super excitement. Seema
Mm-hmm.
traveling. Chitra traveling facing audience makes her, I guess,
Okay.
super nervous.
Super
Uh,
nervous. Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Suchita
Yes.
says nervous, bad health. Sheetal
Uh-huh.
stepping out of comfort zone makes me excited.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
great.
said super nervous. COVID makes me.
I know.
Movie says the face future makes. I don't know if that makes super excited or super nervous. Could be either. Shween
Mm-hmm.
says super excited. Life skill workshops, new travel destinations.
Okay.
Shubham super nervous is stage fear. Uma
Okay.
both family. Shiva
Mm-hmm.
super nervous talking to new people. Sheetal
Mm-hmm.
doubts and fears make me super nervous. Neeta dressing up well these days to go for ice cream makes us
Okay.
super excited.
Excited.
Morali,
Yes.
super excited new movies. Dimple,
Mm-hmm.
learning experiences excite me, and nervous is not getting along with loved ones. Pragati,
Okay.
excited to go for a trip in nature, and facing people or confrontation makes her nervous.
Oh, yes.
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 So, Seema,
Right?
relatives make her nervous. Jeshan,
Mm-hmm.
public speaking. China in future. Yes, I agree. China makes me nervous too.
Okay.
Sri,
The
super
word
nervous.
China itself. So anything that goes with China
Trump makes
or
me nervous
Chinese.
too. To be in bed with sickness when my husband is out. And
Mm-hmm.
Neelam says, super excited to learn new things and super
Okay.
nervous to step outside comfort zone.
Yes. Correct. So now, just now, as I asked you to speak about this, you gave it a thought and put it on the paper. So this is exactly what we need to do as an assessment on a regular basis. So when we're talking about our strengths, our weaknesses, we include in our strengths, we include everything that makes us charged up, makes us positive, makes us confident. Our weaknesses would be everything that makes us nervous, makes us feel down, makes us feel threatened, and accordingly we need to sit and figure out the opportunities for us available outside the world. So here what I'm trying to say is this assessment process is the beginning of invention. First of all, try and this keeps on changing. Let me tell you, this keeps on changing. This equation of strengths and weakness is something which is a strength for you today which might not be tomorrow. So you need to keep on working on your weaknesses as well so that they become your strengths. So that is the first step in this journey of reinvention. And now I go back to my slideshow. So the second important point that I'm going to mention here is
One question
rediscover.
before you
Yeah,
say the SWOT. Is it
yeah,
better if it's written down? How should the assessment be done?
exactly. So it should be written down. It should be written down on a piece of paper in a colorful way. If it's strengths, nice, positively, they need to put it on the paper. Or even weaknesses, you can maybe use a red color, which shows that this is a dangerous zone for us, and put this at some place where it's easily visible on a regular basis. You need to keep on viewing it, otherwise it will just go back to your mind. So keep on viewing it and try and figure out, okay, are my strengths still working for me, or have they become obsolete? Have they become redundant as times change? Now, things like, for example, if I've been a great trainer, but if I wouldn't really update and upgrade according to the technical demands of the webinars, my strength wouldn't remain a strength, right? So today my strengths are different. My strengths would, along with my delivery and the content, it also requires a lot of designing on the online media. So that has to be visibly placed. Yeah. So
Perfect.
this
Thank
is,
you.
yeah, yeah. So coming back to my screen again, I have just used short acronyms here, which are easy for you to remember the whole idea. So the idea of discovery or rediscovery is ask. Ask, which means work on your attitude, your skills, and your knowledge area. So rediscover your attitude, which would mean जो अब तक आपके लिए काम नहीं कर रहा है, something which has not been working for you, you need to try and change that approach altogether. Again, upgrading yourselves on different skill sets, and expanding your knowledge horizon. So that is something which is the rediscovery process. At On this note, um, let me come back to this question. All right. So this is about, in my first clip, I had asked you about what is that one new habit or one new skill that you learned during the lockdown process. Now I come to a difficult question, a more difficult one, which is, what is that attitude of yours that you have discovered during the lockdown, which has worked wonderfully for you? All right, which is that, for example, I talked about patience, that patiently I could handle my kids, and it was really, really a rewarding thing for me. So what kind of attitude or approach towards handling this whole COVID-19 situation has worked wonders, and that you discovered newly during the lockdown? So this is not about your task or activities or events or YouTube channels. This is about your approach, deeper.
So waiting for some answers.
Mm-hmm.
I said that I can stay home forever. Sayali says quick learner. Suchita says
Aha, great.
resilience to face reality.
Uh,
Dimple being calm. Sween says
okay,
staying calm.
right.
Chitra says mindfulness. Pranaya says keep calm and stay positive. Neelam
Yes.
patient and appreciate small things, gratitude. Vatsala
Wow.
says my optimistic approach. Suchita
Wonderful.
says acceptance. Neeta, I
Mm-hmm.
can do household chores. Yes.
Ah, that was a discovery. Yeah.
Being positive all the time and trusting myself more than before. And
Wow.
Dimple says focus on work that needs to be done at the moment.
Okay, these are wonderful insights, I must say. And now, today on this platform, as you people have shared these insights, I would say you need to celebrate these insights, and you need to cherish them, and you need to keep them with you all throughout this learning and this process of reinvention. So sometimes it happens that now, as I said, we were necessitated to do certain things, and that's how we discovered this. So maybe tomorrow there's no necessity, but we still need to see that we find out such approaches which has worked wonders for us and have added a great value. So coming with the final aspect of this journey here, which is redesign. Now, what should we redesign? We're talking about the journey towards reinvention. First of all, we take an assessment. It's like a stock taking that we do with SWOT analysis. Then we discover with ask, that is attitude, skill, and knowledge. And finally, we redesign three things, which is redesign our BAT in terms of, okay, these are all my acronyms. I don't know how they fit here, but I somehow try to figure out something which I totally relate to. So my BAT is redesign your behavior, redesign your actions, and redesign your talk. All right. So behavior towards your family, friends, stakeholders, certain actions which you might have been doing wrongly, which consumed a lot of time, which added stress onto you, which were not done properly. Again, you could redesign them. And then, of course, talk is something. Now, this is important for me to discuss here. Just give me a moment to share this. Now, redesign your talk is all about redesigning your language. All right. Now, language, whatever language you use, be it English, Marathi, Hindi, but you redesign the whole construction of the sentence. The choice of words needs to be very carefully done so that it reflects out of your behavior. It requires a lot of mindfulness and a lot of thought needs to go into it. So redesign. Okay, ये sentence मैंने ऐसे बोला है, मुझे लगता है ये गलत तरीके से जा रहा है. I should put it this way. All right. So because what happens is, if you're not able to redesign, your communication might create certain blocks and certain gaps, and it would lead to not only confusion but also a lot of resistance from people around you. So if you don't want that, you need to redesign your words. So just now, as I said, I'll just give you my example. I'm repeating that example again, so that it fits in this picture, perfectly. So when I told you that how I tried and became more and more patient with the kids, the only thing that I did is I changed the use of my words towards them. So the choice of words, I was very careful, and there were so many times that I had to repeat the same thing for them to listen to me. And you know how kids are, I needed to repeat that. But whenever I used to repeat, I used to see that even if I repeated it 10 times, I used to keep the tone in control. I would never go hyper or with a high pitch or using accusation or accusing them or using inserting kind of tone towards them, or the words that I used to use were very gentle, soft, but firm. So the kind of assertive language that we all know, which we need to use. Believe me, guys, this requires a lot of redesigning. So when we do something like this, it's a part of reinvention. It's something which we have not habituated to. Maybe we didn't do it earlier because we didn't have that time, that inclination, and everyone was busy with their lives. But this was the need of the hour, and I tried doing it, and I tried doing it on purpose, and it worked wonders for me. Now back to you people. Any
Before
redesigning?
we go to
Yeah.
the next one, Neelam has asked a question, and I think very
Uh-huh.
appropriate for right now. Can you
Mm-hmm.
suggest some tips to improve talk even more? I know you gave an example, but can you
Mm-hmm.
also, because this is one of the biggest ones I think that we all struggle with.
Yes, yeah. So when we're talking about talk here, okay, talk in terms of the usage of words, it could be verbal or it could be written. Or maybe, if you're working with your boss, and email writing is one part of your talk. So it's not necessarily the talk as in the verbal communication, but I'm here focusing on the usage of words, and of course the usage of the tone, the right tone here as such. So when I was talking about this, you see, there are basically three styles of our behavior. Now I'm going a bit in communication here. So the behavioral styles, three basic behavioral styles, as we all know, one would be aggressive, the other would be passive. Now these two are extreme, and we need to find out the golden mean, which is the assertive style of communication. Now, what is assertiveness? Assertiveness, which would be, you need to be firm about what you want to say, but gentle. Remember gentleness. So usage of those golden words like please, could you please, even if with our kids, why can't we use them? Thank you, sorry, excuse me, would you do that, could you manage that, how about doing it, will it help, can we make it this way? These kind of gentle words that we could use. And what we do is, even if we redesign, we're very careful about using them for the first time, but then the kids don't listen. Second time, kids wouldn't listen. Third time, we miss it all. We mess it all and we go back to our track. Don't you understand? I've been telling you so long. And why did you listen to me? Isn't it so simple? How come you take so much of time to understand this? Again, it's everything down the drain. So it would require a lot of thought process, as I said, a lot of reflection, a lot of practice that needs to be put into. And where would you do that practice? Of course, at home. Practice begins at home. Discipline begins at home. And if you do it this way, what you are improving on is you're improving on your approach, and that reflects through your behavior. And ultimately, that's how you're able to build bonds and better connects. And that's an invention, and this is a process. Let me tell you, with my experience of last 20 years, I've been training on communication. This is an ongoing, everlasting process, lifelong process. You can never say that I have perfected this art of speaking in an assertive way. No, it doesn't happen. Assertiveness would include you to appreciate others, congratulate others, recognize the efforts that someone else has put in. It would require you to be very prompt, with gracious, applause, with kind of congratulating others, kind of finding something good in everything that is happening in a negative way, bad way, but you are positive. So if you think in that way, use that kind of language. And if you use that kind of language, you start behaving in that way. So it's like, vicious circle, and it's all interconnected. And as I said, it requires practice to be done on a consistent basis. Only if you do it on a consistent basis, it would provide you with the desired results and long lasting ones. So that's an important part of reinvention, I believe.
So we're going back a little bit, but
Mhm.
Dimple has also said, could you talk a little bit about actions or of act? So we maybe you can finish that and we can come back to act also
So she wants me to talk about the actions in the bat.
of the act. ACT. I think that was the second one that you had done.
No, the second one was ask, ASK. Okay, I'll just share the screen once
Yes,
again.
please do.
Okay, so this is the
And
ask
you had said the actions, right? In the back.
actions here with the bat. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So redesign your actions is as simple as something which you have been doing in a particular manner for a long time, but it has not helped you. I'll give a small example, and these are like examples from life around me. So there are people who go in for religious practices, a lot of conventional ways of working, and they have been acting on these, right, as a part of habit, as a part of their rituals, as a part of their practices. But while doing this, if it's been hampering some kind of if it's hampering someone around, if you're not finding time for yourself, if it's being very taxing onto you, in terms of your health, in terms of your finances, it's taking a toll on everything, then I think it's time to redesign those acts. These acts are those simple acts. For example, if I give you a simple example again, if you have been in a habit of kneading the dough, though we have maize, but now during the last 6 months when we didn't have the maize, if you have been in a habit of kneading the dough with your hands, and now if you change those acts into that habit into by using a food processor, it's going to save a lot of time, a lot of efforts, and give results promptly. So this is an act that I'm talking about, something on which you have been acting, something which you have been practicing, but it's not giving you the desired output. In fact, it's taking a toll on your mental, financial, physical, and emotional health. And while doing this, if you feel that, okay, I'm not able to find time for reinventing myself. Why? Because I don't have time to, this is the biggest problem that I've seen with ladies. I don't have time. क्यों? क्योंकि मुझे ये करना पड़ता है, वो करना पड़ता है, तो आप तरीका बदलो. वो जो आप कर रहे हैं, उसका तरीका बदलो. For example, if there's something which is non-core, delegate it. Now, the biggest problem with this delegation, I'll tell you, particularly with ladies, happens is we do not trust others. Yeah. So take an example of our maids. How many ladies would say, I'm 100% satisfied with my maid. I've delegated everything onto her. She's a big support. I don't have to overlook. I just focus on my core area. The biggest issue, yes.
Yes.
There are many who are saying yes. So what I'm trying to say here is you need to change those actions. Now, something which is taking a lot of toll on your resources. See, this is the resourcefulness that I'm talking about. If your resources are not working for you, work on your resourcefulness. And that's what I mean by acts.
So one more question has come in from Dimple, and it's a good time to take it because I think as we're going along, sorry to keep interrupting you. How about actions of BAT in relationships?
In relationships, so everything, I'll just again share this screen with you here. Everything with this is interrelated, not only in your personal but professional relationships as well. So you put your actions in a particular format which works best for you, and along with that you redesign your talks, that is the words and the sentences that you're going to use. You're going to use very gentle tone, very polish. You know what, we do it, but we do it mostly for our professional relationships. Why? Because we are earning out of that. But when it comes to our personal relationships, we start taking things for granted, and that becomes the biggest issue. That's where the biggest issue is. So all this, the behavior should be, and what I'm talking is really difficult. So when I'm saying that relationships can really flourish if we try and work, redesign on our behavioral patterns, the habitual actions which have really not yielded any kind of positive results in terms of our relationships and resources, and of course our talks. This is going to take the maximum time of your reinvention process. One more last thing which I'll just show you the slide. See, the first 2 points here with reassess and rediscover, these are intrinsic, all right? But redesign is for extrinsic. आप अंदर जो भी कर रहे हैं वो बाहर दिख के आना चाहिए. अगर वो दिख के नहीं आता है तो ये जो intrinsic आपने किया, whatever you've done here is all waste. All right? So it needs to show results in terms of your relationship, in terms of your successes, and that this is an extrinsic thing. This will be reflected outside, and that matters. See, even if you experiment with yourselves, even if you explore new avenues, unless and until you're able to express it with your near and dear ones, it's waste. We can't reinvent in isolation, can we? What's the use of that reinvention if you're not able to add value to our relationships? So we need to work, and we need to be able to express it through our behaviors and words and talks. And that's the whole idea of that.
So Sarika, Madhu has asked also a great question. Now, can you give some examples about homemakers and how they have reinvented themselves?
All right. So, in fact, whatever I have been sharing up till now is applicable for homemakers, professionals, and all ladies. I mean, for everyone, everything that I have been discussing. Now, I move on to the further slides, which will give a clear idea about how homemakers also can make a proper use. For example, SWOT analysis can be done by homemakers also. So, I'll tell you, the biggest strength of a homemaker is her multitasking. The way she can multitask, with utmost focus. She's really very fast because she's been doing everything regularly and with great speed, great confidence. So the strength applies there. If you talk about weaknesses, maybe for a homemaker, the weakness would be she keeps herself as the last priority. That could be the thing. Why? Because she's at home, her people take her for granted, and she gets used to that cycle of serving others, and that becomes her weakness. Her family becomes her weakness, her kids become her weakness, and ultimately she becomes weak in the overall process of reinvention. So that's how homemakers can try and assess this whole aspect. Yeah. Can we move on?
Yes.
All
Thank
right. Yeah. So moving on to the next slide, which is again the most important one. And towards the end, we're going towards the end. In fact, this is one of my last slides here. So the final 5 mantras to reinvent and rejoice. All right, guys, learn to make yourself your top priority. Move out from your comfort zone. So some people have already said it just now. Some of them enjoy being out of their comfort zone, but most of them do not, because it's not comfortable. As simple as that. So remember this. Stop looking for validation always. Okay, now let me tell you one thing. I have one Hindi slogan for every point that I've mentioned here, and this is how you can remember it easily. So when I say learn to make yourself your top priority, my slogan here is "Jaan hai to jahan hai." ठीक है, अगर आप में जान रहेगी, आपकी हेल्थ ठीक रहेगी, आप खुश रहेंगे, if you're happy with yourself, if you're satisfied with yourself, only then you'll be able to serve others, be it your family or be it your professional relationship. So jaan hai to jahan hai is my first slogan. Move out from your comfort zone. Moving out of your comfort zone is usually very risky. All right, and we need to take a lot of risk, and it requires a lot of push. So recently, my daughter was sharing with me a tagline from a new web series. This is based on life of Harshad Mehta, and it was a very punchy line which which I'm using here now. उसमें दिया था कि रिस्क है तो इश्क है. All right. So अगर आप अपनी लाइफ से इश्क करते हैं, if you love your life, you need to take risks and you need to move out of your comfort zone. Now stop looking for validation always. I believe this is something which we are used to, especially ladies after marriage, when they have to fit to two families, and for every now and then, ये ठीक है, ये सही है, मैं इनको पूछ के बताती हूँ. Okay, so always we want some kind of validation and approval, and we don't even realize that when it becomes a habit for us. What happens in return is our decision making goes for a toss, our problem solving capacities go for a toss, our endurance goes for a toss. We not, there's no perseverance in whatever we have been doing. So what the idea here is asking for opinion is one thing, and asking for validation is something else. So if you're one of those who always feels, let me ask him, let me ask my husband, let me ask my in-laws, or am I going correct? Is this correct? Or if you're one of those who post something on social media or on your YouTube channel, keep on looking for, what is that comment? How many likes did I get? How many views did I get? Or are people liking it? Are people appreciating me? Oh, someone has told me, why did he say that? What did make him? What are we doing? We're giving our control to someone else. We should stop doing this. If we want to reinvent ourselves, we cannot give our control in someone else's hand. Asking for support is something else, but giving our remote control into someone else's hand is really, really very dangerous. All right. So stop asking for validation. So यहाँ पे the slogan that I like to use here for stop looking for validation always is the very famous quote in Hindi which says सबसे बड़ा रोग क्या कहेंगे लोग. Right? तो हमेशा हम देखना चाहते हैं कि लोग क्या कहेंगे, लोग इसको validate करेंगे या नहीं. So that is the idea. Stop playing the victim's card. Again, many ladies that I have seen, they are the most comfortable playing the victims card. दूसरों पे blame डाल दो, situation पे blame डाल दो, कुछ नहीं तो सास ससुर पे blame डाल दो, बच्चों पे blame डाल दो. They always have easy targets, and that's how they would show that how they are victimized. So it's not that ladies are, some ladies could have genuine issues. I do understand that, but it's all about their solution focused approach. If they won't find a solution, they would do that. So I feel this is very important that we do not go into that victim mentality, which is always about, talking about how life has been tough for me always, and how I've not been able to find time and find resources for reinventing myself or for doing different things in different ways. So this is something which is very dangerous and very common with ladies. So the slogan for me is stop playing the victim's card. मैं बेचारी अबला नारी. All right. So मैं बेचारी अबला नारी, मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ, मैं तो बस अबला हूँ. That kind of victim's card that we play. And finally, this is the final go-getter for me, and which is celebrate your unique identity. If we want to reinvent ourselves, we need to cherish our real identities first. Whenever we feel that we're going through an identity crisis, समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि क्या पर्सनल लाइफ पे ध्यान दे, प्रोफेशनल लाइफ पे ध्यान दे, मुझे कोई रिस्पेक्ट ही नहीं करता है, मेरी बात कोई मानता ही नहीं, ना घर पे ना बाहर, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. So if these kind of things are happening where you're going through an identity crisis, you need to first of all search in what is unique into you. What are your signature attributes? How can you add that kind of flavor and flesh to whatever you do in your own styles? And that's how you would be able to keep on reinventing yourselves. So find something new about you, work on that in a proper, with those 3 R's that I mentioned just now. First and foremost, sit and reassess. Secondly, rediscover a few things about you. And then finally, sit and redesign your bat. So these are the ways how you're able to find out your unique selves. And my unique way, before I wrap it up or call it a conclusion from my side, my unique way, this is something which I have invented during the lockdown. When I started taking the webinars, I always end all my webinars in my own style, unique style, which is by using 4 lines in Hindi, which sum up the whole session or the whole talk or whole discussion of 1 hour that we had. So for today's session, the 4 lines that I have written for all of you ladies, wonderful ladies out here on reinventing yourself is, खुदी की खोज में तू वक्त बिता, खुदी की खोज में तू वक्त बिता, खुदी को बार बार यूं तराशती जा, खुदी की खोज में तू वक्त बिता, खुदी को बार बार यूं तराशती जा, कि जब भी उदास हो ये मन तेरा, तो खुदी को नए सिरे से ढूंढ के ला. This is how I'd like to end from my side. Now, any kind of questions or feedback or discussions are welcome from you.
Absolutely. I have the first question always. So, the management mind now is clicking. So how do we know that we have reinvented ourselves?
Okay. So we'll have to have our benchmark set. All right, benchmark set. So if I feel that I want to get a promotion, but I'm not getting that promotion, there's a lot of competition happening around, right? So I sit, do the reassessment, rediscover and redesign my styles, and then work on it. So when I get the promotion, I know I have reinvented myself. So obviously we should focus on the results. All right. For effectiveness, results are important. But results do not mean only materialistic outputs. Remember this. We can't always keep on, rating ourselves in terms of the material things that we've been getting, be in terms of promotion or, money or materialistic things as such, or assets as such. One benchmark could be, the level of satisfaction and the kind of fulfilling and happy life or wonderful relations that we have got around us. So even that would be a way in which we come to know that, yes, I have reinvented myself. So if your relationship was not working well, maybe with your kids, with your in-laws, with your husband, and suddenly you feel, okay, now I reinvented myself and now everything is going smooth. So that means you're on the right track.
Thank you. Murali, go ahead. You had a question. Murali, go ahead.
Hi, yes, ma'am. Okay. I was very surprised and I was shocked actually that very wonderful session. First, hats off to the team
And
of.
of course, we are shocked that it was a wonderful session.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
My question is how to create the positive relationship, especially in the working spot. Please give some tips, ma'am.
Sure, sure, sure. So when you're using this word positive, all right, this word itself says that everything that you do should be positive. First and foremost, you'll have to think positive. Now, think positive doesn't mean that you don't think negative. Negative thoughts will automatically come and prop up in your mind. But when I say think positive, means focus on the positive. So even if there's a dispute, even if there's a conflict, even if there's a any kind of issue, your focus needs to be on the solution. You should all the time be able to focus on the solution. What could be the solution? With your knowledge, with your skills, and with your right attitude, you should be able to find out the solution. So the solution works or doesn't work, that doesn't it's not important. First and foremost, what's important is focus on finding the solution. Stop talking rubbish, stop talking negative, stop getting into any kind of criticism or gossiping or blaming kind of these are things that we do even in corporate lives. We do these things, which is called as a grapevine kind of channel of communication. So when people get into this more, then the negativity comes into picture. So what I feel is, first of all, think positive, focus on the solutions, be willing, and cooperative and helpful to offer these solutions, work on these solutions, whatever help is required. अगर आप ऐसा एटीट्यूड रखेंगे, वो नहीं कर रहा है मैं क्यों करूं, उसका काम है मेरा काम नहीं है, then it wouldn't work. All right, you'll have to take an initiative, push yourself, reinvent in terms of, okay, I could work 8 hours, now I'll work for 10 hours at a stretch, 12 hours at a stretch. Why? Because this is the need of the hour. I need to reinvent. So that is how you will try and implement everything positive at the back of your mind into picture. As I said, it needs to be extrinsic, it needs to come out of you, and it needs to be reflected through your words and behavior. So if you're using positive words with a smile on your face, with a tinkle in your eyes, with a hope in your tone, that this will work. Let's work towards it with a lot of enthusiasm and encouragement. Then definitely you create a positive environment around you and you get positive results out of it. It might take time, but it would come for sure.
The next question we'll take from Priyanka. Priyanka, go ahead.
Yeah,
Priyanka?
good evening, ma'am. First of
Yes, good
all, a
evening.
great session, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Priyanka.
first of all, very beautiful session going on, ma'am. It's really sailing very smooth and very lucid. So I just wanted to ask you, ma'am, like what about those situations where our modesty and our being polite goes underrated and taken advantage of, be it in social circle or
Yes. All right. So when your modesty or your being polite is underrated, or this is a very good question. So remember, I use the word when I said assertive communication. I use these words which are actually quite contradictory, which they say that you need to be soft but firm. All right. If you're not firm on what you're saying, and if you just go into that goody, goody, goody kind of thing, why? Because you want to save that relation. You're very careful about that relation, be it with your boss or your husband or your in laws. What happens is sometimes you go very, very, very soft, and then people start taking you for granted. So you be firm. You be firm with what you want to share, with how much you want to share, with whatever knowledge and skills that you want to share. So you be firm on that, but at the same time, you have to have that kind of confidence and conviction. You need to have those lines which people can't cross. If you see people crossing those lines, you need to remind them. People do not understand on their own, so there are people who would call you and tell you that or if you call them and they said, okay, just hold for 2 minutes. All right, so you keep on holding. Now this is such a common thing that I'm talking about, and you keep on waiting and you keep on holding, and these people, they don't even feel bad about it. They'll get back onto the call after 5 or 10 minutes maybe, and they won't even say a sorry. Now this is the time when you think that your modesty is being taken for granted. It's very important that you make them realize in a very soft and firm way. I thought 2 minutes. You said 2 minutes. That means you'd be back after 2 minutes. I was in the middle of something which I had left for attending your call. And I need to remind them. But again, reminding them not in that harsh tone. Once you raise your tone, the communication goes for a toss. You can't do that. You need to be really polite, firm and gentle with them. Though we are making them remind that they have made a mistake, they have gone overboard with their, they have taken us for granted in terms of our time or finances or other resources, but it's very important that we remind them. And if they do not listen, if they don't remember, we remind them again and again.
So we'll take the last question. Seema,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. It was a very nice session. I just wanted to ask one thing. Like, I've seen some people, like, they make you stuck. They won't change.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do in that?
So simple, Seema. We are talking about changing ourselves. Be the change you want to see. People won't change, situations won't change, nothing would change, but something which we have in our control is to change our strategies, our approaches, our policies, our procedures, our systems, our thought process. That's in our control. So the very important formula for change here is focus on your circle of influence and not on the circle of concern. So here now, your concern is people don't change. Let them not. They wouldn't. But you change. You initiate the change. You be the change that you want other people to see. And believe me, 80% of the time, people will start following you. They wouldn't change just because you want it, but they would change once they see that you have changed and you're producing results out of that. Then definitely they'll start following you. So focus on the circle of influence. You change whatever is in your control.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm going to sum it up, and I think Kailash has said it much better than I can. Thank you for this very well planned and rich in content talk. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for all. So, Sarika, really, really thank you. And any last tips for us before we sign off for tonight?
So this is, I again would want to thank you people. You've been a wonderful audience. Everyone participated really well. Thank you for answering and asking so many questions and doubts. I think we all together have made it a very enriching session. So at the end, I would just wish you all a very, lots of love and luck on this new journey of reinvention. And remember to make it as a lifelong process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, we wish you all a good night. Please do your SWOT analysis, do the BAT and the ask, right?
Yeah.
SWOT, ask, BAT.
Perfect. That's how it's easy to remember.
Awesome. Good night, everyone. Just remember those 3 words.